basically, I keep hearing you talk about how teachers need to relate to their students, and I know as an administrator, you were my first administrator. Uh, so I want to know what about you, what about your experience in life allowed you to relate to what I told you about, to the viewers that haven't watched uh, me share my story about what happened to me when I was a victim of police brutality. You need to go check that out. It's called I Was Nearly George Floyd. But after that incident with the police and me defending myself against police brutality, no one would hire me, even though I graduated number one in my class from the University of Southern Mississippi with a 4.0 in psychology. Nobody in the field of psychology would hire me. Uh, I tried other school districts first. They wouldn't hire me, but this lady did. So what about you? From your experience? And now, when I was trying to get the psychology jobs, those were white people. Okay, and of course, like I had one white person tell me the police like your mom and daddy, like you, so you should just do. So I guess I was just supposed to let cuz whoop me or something, I guess. But some of the folks were black that didn't hire me.
That's not shocking
So
to me.
yeah, so what allowed you to be empathetic with when it came to something like that?
I think the thing that's like mind-boggling to me now is that everybody thinks this whole George Floyd and everything that they see now, the visual, is something that's new. It's always been happening. It has
Mhm.
always occurred. I said the only thing, the incident last week with the woman in the hotel harassing a little black boy about the phone, those things are not new. It's because now we have this network or this opportunity to see it play out through the phone, through the system. So when you
Uh-huh.
came to me, I grew up in Canton, Mississippi, where the chief of police, Billy Noble, was like the boogeyman. It wasn't like
Oh,
he was a friend.
yeah.
He wasn't a
I keep
friendly
hearing that
person.
name. Yeah, it's like he's
Right.
legendary. Yeah.
So, growing up being afraid of the police was like a norm to us. It wasn't, they were not supposed to be, in my mind, people who were friendly. And so when you came to me, it was like, okay, this was an incident of another situation where the police were not friendly to a black person. There was incidents in right here in Canton that are getting national news now. But if somebody's found hanging in a cell, and right now it'll get national news attention. And there are people right now in families where their son or daughter went to jail one night in Canton and woke up the next day, they were dead, hanging in the cell, and nobody made big deals about it. There was, a family very close to us in our church. It happened to them. And when I think about it now as an adult, as a grown person, I'm like, why wasn't that on the news? Why didn't that get any attention? But I grew up, I think, understanding by the time you came along, it wasn't like a shock to me that this had happened to you because it had always happened. But the main thing that has been the major injustice to us is that black people have criminalized other black people. We got to that mindset of thinking that if you don't listen to the police, then you must be the criminal. You're the
Mhm.
wrong person. You're the person who's done something. So when white people were able to put that mindset into black people, when we adapted to that mindset that if you're black and you have an experience with a police officer and it's negative, you are wrong. We still do it today. That is one of the major injustices that's happening in our society with black people. We criminalize each other so easily. And so therefore, when you come to me, first in your class, 4.0, I know your mother's background, I know your mother's history, I know everything about your family, and you still see me as a criminal, you criminalize me for something that has been implanted in you. And so, unfortunately, it's something that still thrives in our communities now. We can't live in our own neighborhoods because we're afraid of the people that grew up with us, the people in our own communities, the people that, we grew up around. And so we move, and when we move into other neighborhoods and we send our children to other schools, we remove ourselves from our environment. And that's one of the reasons why our communities no longer can grow, because we've taken all of our money away from where we should put it. Canton used to be one of the places that was thriving. People would come to Canton to purchase their goods and purchase their clothing, but now it's not seen as one of the viable communities. It's not seen as being a safe community. So people have moved away from it. And when we get those nice jobs and those high-paying jobs, we move to other places. So our community cannot grow anymore. So when you came to me and said this had happened to you, I was shocked, but I wasn't, because the interaction with police officers, as I had seen my entire life, had not been anything positive. I knew you. I knew you as a child, but I didn't grow up with you like my sisters did, but I knew your mother, I knew your grandmother, I knew your sister. So who is this young man? All of a sudden, he went to St. Joe. All of a sudden, he's a criminal. Come on. So it wasn't hard for me because my mindset was in a totally different place. And I think that was the beginning of maybe my activism, or the beginning of my understanding that Black people have been criminalized. We criminalize each other. The system has not worked for us. I needed a Black male teacher because my son had never had one before in his life. And I needed one at Holy Child. My father was probably the last Black male teacher. Mr. Luckett, your father-in-law, was the Black male teacher probably at Holy Child. Mr. Watson was there, but there wasn't a lot. And I knew that you were going to be somebody that my children and my son and the boys in that class could adapt to. And you came there and you did a phenomenal job. And so it wasn't like I think when you told me, it was like, okay, when can you start? It wasn't a long conversation.
Yeah, it was. And I was dead. I was flat broke. I was married without. I'm married without a job. So when it was just like, when can you start? I'm like, whoa, okay.
When I hear you tell that story, when I hear you talk about it as if it was something like I had to really think about. No, I was like, okay.
All right. This is what I think you don't give yourself credit for. A lot of people know right and wrong. Like, I'm sure, maybe not with the white employers that I went to, but definitely with the Black folks. They knew good and well what happened to me. They knew clearly what happened to me, but they didn't have enough courage to make a controversial hire. You see what I'm saying? Especially then, I wasn't even certified to teach at that time. You know what I'm saying? But they saw the resume. They saw in terms of my scholastics, my interview. I've never had a bad interview, but they didn't want controversy. You know what I'm saying? And so they didn't have the courage to say, I know what happened. I know what happened was BS. I'm hiring this guy, but you did. So I kudos to you, and I appreciate you forever for that.
I thank you. And then even when
those kids, exactly what you're saying, like those y'all don't know that I had a little team, a little middle school basketball team. That's how I started out my coaching career, right there at Holy Child Jesus. And I fell in love with those boys. I fell in love with the whole school because I was teaching preschool PE all the way up to 6th grade. And like you said, I had to adapt. So with my preschoolers, I had to wipe some snot off their nose and stuff like that. I had to do some little things. But with the older ones, the 6th graders, that's that time you start getting influenced by gangs and stuff. Because you're going through puberty, you're changing. So some of the conversations I had to have with those little fellas, were totally different from what I was having with my little babies, and they're talking about preschool stuff with them. But I just fell in love, and that's what made me, go the alternate route, and I ended up having a decade as a teacher. But that's all thanks to you.
I was never concerned. I mean, I still had to go, to the superintendent, and I took your paperwork there, and I told her the story, and she was like, well, is this really something? I said, yeah. It never was a question in my mind as to, do I make this decision? I knew that what had happened to you was something that had happened to Black boys and Black men all the time. It wasn't something that didn't happen. It happened all the time, and you survived. You did not become a George Floyd, or you did not become one of these young men who went to jail one night, and then the parents got a phone call saying that, oh, he hung himself. He got so depressed. You survived, and that's the major part of your story, that you are now able to tell these young men that this can happen to you, and this is what's going to happen as a result of you just getting arrested one time in your life. One time, not a career criminal, not somebody who's been doing this for a long time. This is the only time, and this is what's happened to me. And people in our community have to start acknowledging the fact that this happens to young Black boys all the time.
My kids wanted me to tell y'all to make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me across all social media platforms, like the videos, and share them. Did I forget anything?
And turn on the post notifications.
Y'all heard them. And also, visit Statement Tees, LLC.com, and shop with us. That's Statement Tees. Every t-shirt you wear
makes a statement.